It is 2:00 on Tuesday, February 18th, and I am calling the meeting of the Public Art Committee to order. We are in City Hall, second floor, media conference room. Marissa, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Jennings?
Here.
Ms. Eckmeyer?
Is absent and excused. She's had surgery.
Mr. Meals?
Here.
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Ms. Iwano? Mr. Iwano?
Here.
Sorry. Ms. Gregory?
Here.
Ms. Hollibar? Ms. Hollibar is absent.
Okay, we have guests with us today. We have Costa Vadakiotis. Would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Michaela Oberlander. I'm a professor of art history at St. Petersburg College.
And City Manager Mark Licouris, Police Chief Robert Cochin, and we have two of our employees, if you would introduce yourselves.
Dennis Bosley from IT.
Paromita Ganguly from GIS IT.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the workshop we had on January 10th?
I make a motion they be approved.
There is one correction, I
Okay.
think. Jules suggested a
Oh, wait.
Bahamian.
Wait, just a
Sponge
minute,
diver.
you're right, just a point of order. There's a motion, and then we
Oh.
have a second, and then we can discuss. Do I
sorry.
have a second?
Second.
Bill? Okay, go ahead, Lucianne, I'm sorry.
Jules talked about adding a Bahamian sponge diver to, and I think it was misspelled in the minutes as a Bohemian sponge diver. So, in her
That will be
absence, I'll
correct.
stick up for her idea.
Okay.
That will be
Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I make a motion, yes.
Trish,
To be
second?
accepted as
Second.
amended.
Bill? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passed. Approval of our, the minutes of the meeting from January 14th. I hear a motion to approve.
I make a motion.
Trish, second.
I'll second.
Bill? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Okay, old business, we're moving on to the Artist Alley Initiative. I know Jules had asked various members of the committee to poll various municipalities in the area, and the result of everybody's inquiries were sent to Diane, who collated them, and we have a printout in front of us. City of Tarpon Springs, I think, Diane, you just reiterated what we knew before. Lucianne, do you want to just briefly touch on Safety Harbor?
Yes, they have an active public art committee. The workman's comp, 300,000 per occurrence, also employer's liability insurance. General liability, online, it said 500,000, but the actual contract I was sent said $1 million. So I don't know if there's flexibility. And then auto, 500,000, listing the city as an also insured. They do have a waiver of insurance for low-risk projects. And one of the examples was chalk painting, where there isn't a lot of heavy equipment. The area can be isolated, and there didn't appear to be much risk.
Do you know whether that, whether something like a mural would be considered a low-risk project?
I think there might, I think anything with scaffolding probably is not going to qualify.
Okay,
I'm just guessing.
okay, that makes sense. And I see they have a municipal code on public art? Okay. Trish, you had an easy one.
Oh, yes, mine's very easy. The city of Newport Richey no longer has a public art program, so
Okay.
after many phone calls and emails, I finally got an answer.
Okay, great, thank you for your efforts. Lucianne, back to you on Gulfport.
Yeah, they do not have an ongoing public art program, but in 2014, they did a massive sculpture project in Clymer Park. They called for proposals from artists for a whole series of sculptures ranging in cost from a few $1,000s to many tens of thousands. The contract that they sent me required artists to have general liability insurance, but no dollar amounts were specified.
Okay. Theo, you had Oldsmore?
They do have the program there. I did find an email to contact, so when I emailed them, it was a dead email. So I contacted someone else, and I didn't get much communication from them. I just got like the paperwork and the list of everything. So everything that I found wasn't there. I couldn't contact anyone else after that. It was kind of dead after that. So they have the 500,000 per occurrence for the liability. And then they have the general liability as, again, 500,000. I didn't see anything that was over the top, but I did, as I was reading through it, I noticed they used I think the cafe, which is I heard mentioned in here before.
Right.
I would have to go back and read through it again. I don't remember much because I did get it pretty early, so. But that's what I found.
Okay. CAFE is a mechanism we've used in the past, and it's basically an acronym for, I think, call to artists. I forget what the last two letters of the acronym are, but it's kind of a clearinghouse for artists and for people who are seeking to do projects. And it's fairly expensive. I think it's between $500 and $600 to post a call to artists on CAFE. So we've been trying to use other mechanisms whenever we can. And Bill, you had kind of a frustrating experience, did you not?
Just communication back and forth with I think it's Geibel, who's with the assistant to the mayor for Dunedin. And she's reached out. They use a consultant for their Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. And she was waiting for feedback and information from her consultant. So we've been back and forth, and I think we'll get something good out of it when it finally arrives, but we haven't gotten that as of yet.
Okay. And I know I found a link to Creative Pinellas, and I think briefly it kind of echoes what we're seeing across the board about the, liability insurance. It seems to follow the pattern, so I think we're coming up against, a uniform policy, so it's going to cost money to do it. The one thing that I thought was interesting was what Lucy Ann found in Safety Harbor about that waiver for low-risk projects. So, I mean,
And the artist can apply for the waiver. It is very specifically stated that city staff have to approve it as part of the contract.
right. Does anybody else have any comments, observations on the liability issues? No? Okay, guess we'll move forward then. Bill, we'll go to you for the art recycling container.
Okay, I met with Kyle Pierce, who I believe had been involved with the project in the past, and we met on February the 6th. We discussed a number of different options for potentially for the containers: dolphins, sea turtles, sponge diver helmet, sharks. We also discussed locations where these could be placed. And some of the locations that we talked about were Sunset Beach, the Splash Park, Craig Park, Sponge Docks, and also downtown and along the bike trail. He talked specifically about two different designs: a primary design, which is like a 4 to 5 foot in length, and I do have an example here that he sent me. And he also talked about an interactive design, which would probably just be one of those, where his thought was that you would actually crank something or do something and compress the recycled materials. Okay? He's looking for it to be flat plates and hinged so that it would be easy to remove the contents, and also transparent so people could actually see through. His schedule, if he were to be involved with it, his best time frame is August, September for completion by October. And he currently has, and I'll pass this around, he currently has a piece that could be retrofitted, and because it's already done, it's like around $2,500 for that particular piece. And I do have his contact information, and I can give you this as
Okay.
a report then on that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure next steps.
Right.
You know, what we want to,
Right. Well, I know that the, whatever he proposes has to be approved by the Department of Public Works because they're going to be emptying the containers. So maybe if he could come up with some more concrete designs.
well, we do have the one that he has there
Right.
specifically.
Right. And what about the interactive one? Has he?
It's very conceptual,
Okay. All right.
not surprising.
Right.
So I can push for a little bit more of a definitive design for that.
Right. Is he charging anything for labor or design or anything like that? You said that one was 2,500.
That one, because it's already produced,
Right.
he could, again, retrofit it inexpensively, and he said around $2,500 to get one started, and it would be the one that we have the picture of,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. So I guess this will just stay in touch with him? You'll keep in touch with him
I
about the
can.
project?
Any guidance from the group as to what direction, you know, we want to go with
Any comments?
the containers, or?
How big is that piece?
I don't know. I actually should go out and look at it and measure it, okay? So we're
Right.
at the preliminary stage with this.
Right. Mark, do you have any comments about this? Because I know we're going to have to run everything by the, Public Works people.
No, just
Okay.
Keep doing our due diligence, right?
Right, exactly. Okay, great.
Keep moving it forward.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm up next with the Illuminated Art Boxes, okay, and we've got some good news on this. If you go through your paperwork, you will find a invoice from Portaboards, which was the company I found that could actually manufacture these. They're custom made. Diane has been in touch with, his name just,
Yes, me too.
Jeff Davis.
Jeff, yeah.
Right, I thought Civil War. Okay, and we got a wonderful piece of art from Theo. And, I'm really excited about this because one of the purposes of doing this project was to encourage student and young artists. So the first prototype is in the works. It came in at $925, which was well within our budget. And it will be received, I guess they outsourced the solar power component. So when that's received and installed, and we receive the art box, it'll be installed down at the Sponge Docks with Theo's art. And we'll get everybody's opinion on it and see where we go from there.
I'll probably have a ship date by the March meeting.
Right, great, okay. So that's a work in progress, and that's moving along, I'm happy to say. Okay, we have the updated general guidelines and master plan, the revised copy from the workshop. Now, I know that this is a very complicated and complex issue. We actually started working on this last spring. And I believe that the last version we got came back from the city attorney's office, which was the strike-through version. And I think we have to do a little more preparation and study on this before we could discuss it at a meeting. So I'd like to either defer it to the March meeting and really make it a primary part of our agenda, or to do a separate workshop. How does everybody else feel on that? Lucianne, I know that you had looked in great
Broken
detail.
record.
Yeah.
Do we have that strike-through?
I know I have, yeah.
Yeah, I emailed it to you all, the most recent copy,
I have a,
and it should be in your book, probably.
With
but
our meeting materials?
I'll
it's a
email
magnum
it to
opus.
you.
I mean, it's,
And I believe, Joan, he was speaking primarily about the master plan, that it
Right.
needed to be more specific.
okay.
I mean, I think that was the only,
Right.
issue.
Well, I also think that, I know that we had, as you can see from the strikeouts, and if you want to just take a quick look at this, Lucianne.
Thank you.
Get you another, as you can see, it's a lot of paper. when we had gone over it originally, we deleted a lot of the setup materials. You know, how the the committee was created and, the requirements and that kind of stuff. Kind of the history of why it was formed and everything else. And we just felt that as a revision, a lot of that could be deleted because it was already in the original master plan.
There was a lot that was outdated.
Yes, yeah. We made a lot of, basic updates, bringing things into, 2020. The ability to submit digital images, the ability to use email, that type of thing that were not specified, in the original documents. So, but as you can see, it's a very complex document, and I think, Diane, do you think, would it be an issue for you to re-email that?
Oh, no, that's fine, I'll do that. And it might
Okay.
be best just to focus on the master plan,
That's
because
what I'm thinking. Do I hear any other comments, or, because I know we put a lot of work into it. We spent like 4 hours on it on one meeting alone, and I think we need to do something like that again, to just concentrate on this, because it's obviously very important, so, okay. New business. We have our guest.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I am Paromita. I will not say the whole name, it's tongue twister. So, I am the GIS admin with the city of Tarpon Springs. I was given a task to help you guys figure out what might be the appropriate locations for the public arts display, delineating a kind of region, if I may. I have created a PowerPoint presentation for you. You have 2 screens if you can. Since I did not have much criteria with me, I did a case study for St. Pete. St. Pete has recently, since past 2-3 years, they have taken on public arts at a very high scale. Some common factors that came up is they have identified the heavy traffic corridors, historic and downtown district, community redevelopment, tourist attraction, and recreational areas. These are the 5 categories that we also have common factors in our city. And we can focus on these and find places we can have public art display. In our city, we don't have much data on building per se for the city properties. We have parcel level data. These are the city parcels which belong to, we own, as in city owns it. I did send you, Ms. Jennings, a map, categorized form of these parcels.
Right.
It's not a very good portrayal in this one, but I have the PDF for you again. I'll show you in detail. But what it is government buildings, some historic buildings, some parking areas and recreational areas categorized in it. This, again, is not a very good place to be. Going back to the factors, the traffic corridors. You see the big red lines? This is our US 19, Alternate 19, Tarpon Avenue, and the ones that are going towards Sunset Beach and Fred Howard Park, Closterman being one of them. These are the major traffic corridors, which our city people, we use it, as well as the flow-through traffic, they use it. This small area is our historic and downtown district. In our planning department, we are working with this region to enhance this historic neighborhood, going from Craig's Park all the way to Tarpon Ave, almost to Ring Avenue. This here is community redevelopment area. Planning department has identified this particular zone from Dodekanis, a little bit towards Dodekanis, all the way towards Mayor's, I guess, that street is, to be redeveloped. A lot of zoning, rezoning is happening, SAPs are being created, and this is one happening place right now. We are doing a lot of stuff. And because of the zoning, rather rezoning, a lot of commercial development is happening here, commercial and residential, and foot traffic is increasing in this particular area. Now, these two blue spots, these are the major tourist attractions of our city, downtown and Sponge Dock. There are many more, but these are the two which has the most volume of traffic during the weekends, during the holidays, during the festivals that we have, the third Fridays that we celebrate. Now, these are the recreational areas we have in the city, including the golf course, the Craig Park, Splash Park, Dog Park. Up on that neighborhood, we have Anclote Park, I believe it's called, and some other places, including that Sunset Beach there. Now, identifying these 4 or 5 categories that I just listed, if I lay all of them together on top of each other, this is what I get. A region of approximately 1 mile across and 1.5 miles in north-south. This is the area that we have the most foot traffic, the most vehicular traffic, activities, the festivals. A lot of activities are happening here. We also have, within this particular region, approximately 100, to be precise, 103 public properties within this particular zone. Out of those, 11 are recreation, 10 are parking, 19 are housing. Housing, when I say housing, I mean, what are those things? Community housings. I'm sorry, I'm missing out on the term. 1 hospital, 1 historic, and 10 government buildings. Now, because I worked on assumptions, please don't hold these numbers true. If I get more criteria, study will be redefined. These are based on my assumptions. These are the numbers which are approximate numbers. These 100 parcels, without thinking about number of buildings in it, that is what it shows. How many parcels? Now, within a single parcel, we may have more than 1 building. That is not accounted here. If we focus on these many parcels and this particular region, what comes next might be, excuse me about that, the walkthrough. Now, what we have to do to identify the buildings or the surfaces where we can display public arts, that's something that I cannot provide. Within that region, we can have a walkthrough. But before we even do the walkthrough, this is the PDF, an interactive PDF that I sent you guys. I can show you how to work with this, and you can identify the character of the parcel, the details of the parcel, who owns it, how much acreage it is, what kind of a building it is, what is the use of this parcel at this point of time, whether it's vacant, whether it has a hospital, whether it has a historic building. That is what this particular thing shows. Now, this one, the next screen is the one that you saw the snip on the PowerPoint. It's the same thing, but on a different view. Would you like me to show you how to work with this PDF?
Sure.
Yeah? So far, any questions? Sure.
Yes, Costa?
Up where the river is,
Mm-hmm.
right where the sponge docks are, on the north side, that yellow area,
Yeah.
what is, it says parking, if I can remember, if I read it right?
Yes, it is a parking area. It has been defined as a parcel. Here, let me show you how. Maybe this is the right time to show you this thing. So, on your left, there is a small icon, which is, this actually means layer view. on this, if we were to click on the city property categorized, and layers, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I activate this object data tool, and right on this, I can double click it, provided my data tool works.
And this is regular Adobe Acrobat program?
Very regular, yeah.
Okay,
Anyone, if you have a PDF, Adobe, it will work.
so just Acrobat Reader, it doesn't need any, okay,
I'm working on Acrobat Reader, if you notice here.
yeah. It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so by clicking on those layers, you could, and you'll get the drop down on the
Yes.
left,
And you
giving all
can
the
see the
details.
details right here.
right?
You see the parking? Now, what it is we don't generate the data, this particular data. This comes from county. Each year, we update our parcel level data from county. From that, we do a little bit of GIS, fun stuff, and we extract some data, what we need, what we don't need, and so on and so forth. City properties is part of it. Now, that particular parcel, in this, if you see highlighted, it says it has been categorized as parking. Why, whether it's right or not, I will not say anything about that. It probably requires a field. If you have a question about it, maybe we should go and check if it is. Yeah. Could be.
Boat manufacturers and
Yeah.
things. In other words, there's active businesses on it right now.
Now, if you have a boat manufacturing, if you say, and boats have the parking, the parking garage, that can also be part of it.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's a place that is available for parking. The city manager and I were down there earlier today. and, It's just something to check on, is all I'm asking.
Sure.
I just had a question as far as how it appeared there. And I guess the point is, if you eliminate that one parcel,
Mm-hmm.
and you go back to your list, you'll see that it contracts significantly, which is okay. I mean, you can leave it to where it was, but it seems like that one parcel
That's okay.
seems to drive the boundaries on it.
So that parcel is actually not even accounted for in the location, I guess.
Right, that's
Yeah.
what I was getting at.
So-
Short of that, you could, actually, if you took that out, you could maybe,
We can.
I mean, if you wanted, I'm just talking right now, it's
Yeah.
not an issue with me, but I would double check on that one parcel, because I don't know that it's privately owned, two, it's industrial.
Could be.
Okay. Well, Paramita, I want to thank you, because I think for our purposes too, of, finding locations for various art projects, I think it'll come in very
As a-
handy.
Powerful tool.
Right.
One other question I had, is it possible to populate a layer for the public art where instead of a paper registry of where the public art is currently located, that it can actually have its own layer so that you can pull it up and you can see exactly?
Yes, we can do a lot of fun stuff with once this project is complete. Once you know where we have public art, and if you can give me the images of the public art that's sitting. In fact, I noticed one of the things is on alternate 19 and Tarpon. There is a parking area, and on surface of a building, right at the very end, there's a beautiful art mural. I don't even know what it is, but it's beautiful. So if it is one of the items that you have in a public art, I can actually identify that particular mural, that particular building on a map like that, where you can click on it. You can not only see the spatial location of it, but you can actually pull up the art and see itself. and it can sit on a portal for everyone to see.
And you can have reference material
Yes.
located there as well.
Totally.
Wow.
So
We
could
may be
get-
seeing more of you, Paramita.
Yes.
I'm at your disposal anytime.
Okay. Bill, I know you were the one that
Yeah.
requested it. I think it's a very valuable tool. Thank you. Thank you, Paramita. It was wonderful,
pleasure.
fascinating stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to the review of the artwork by Lynn Pierson. It's also in your packets. We have a picture of it. It's a donation to the fire department section of the public safety facility. And it was run past Tarpon Springs Fire Chief Scott Young, who approved of it. So basically, we're just giving our approval of it, and then it goes, I believe, before the Board of Commissioners, right, Diane? For final approval. So, does anybody, well, let's first have a motion to accept the donation. Do I hear a motion?
I said that.
Lucian, okay, second?
Second.
Trish? Okay, and we can have a discussion. How does everybody feel? I mean, it's,
I'd like to have better pictures of the artwork. It doesn't really tell me, looking at it, what it is.
She's
You know,
got
what
a,
it has to do with the fire department, you know.
she has a description on the last page. If you see, proposed donation up at the top, and then she
Okay.
explains it.
okay, so it'll be positioned in the fire department waiting room, and that's per Chief Young. So,
Okay.
It's interesting.
Interesting.
okay, so it has the approval of the Public Art Committee, and now it will go to the Board of Commissioners for final approval. Okay, and Diane, do you schedule that, or
I'll,
send it to?
I'll let them know and see what, what meeting it should come on.
Okay.
Depending on their, how much they have.
Right. And we also, our next item of business was, we received a artist proposal from Kevin Grass for a Sponge Docks mural. His wife, Michaela Oberlander, is here. And as you can see, it's a very detailed application. And they identified a building. They got the permission of the building owner. Their insurance is either in place or in process of being put in place.
Basically, if it passes, then
Right.
we'll get a policy, but we're not getting the policy unless we know there's going to be
Right,
a job.
right. And it's very whimsical. It's the Tarpon Springs Sponge Ducks. Okay, and we've attached obviously, Kevin, who's a local Tarpon Springs artist, has a fabulous record, and, he also is, as Michaela is, a teacher. And I think it will be a really interesting addition to the Sponge Docks. And I see that the budget for the entire project is $14,500, which is well within the scope of, I think it's a fantastic project for that price. Does anybody have any comments or questions of Michaela?
So this is funded through the Public Art Fund?
Where is it, I'm sorry, I was gonna say,
Pardon me?
where is it going? What building
Okay,
is it
the
going on?
building that, we checked with several potential locations, and we finally got lucky on 555 Dodecanese Avenue, which is directly on the sponge docks. It is on the southern side, so not the side that's next to the water, but the other side. And this is a T-shirt shop, and we talked to the tenant who really liked it. He contacted the landlord directly, and the landlord was like, I think this is going to help increase your business, so he was all okay with it. And Kevin is a local artist who has won international prizes, but is, strangely enough, not very well known in Tarpon Springs. So you'll be more likely to find him at the art fairs in Miami during Art Week and things of that nature. His artwork is based in realism and usually has some kind of message. Now, his figurative pieces, if you look on his website at www.kevingrass.art, you will find that he has a body of work that's social commentary art. He has a series of landscapes. There's a very nice painting of the sponge docks, actually, that he did a few years ago. His artwork has been shown in numerous museums, most recently at the Gerald Ford Museum in Grand Rapids, Michigan during Art Prize, when we were supporting a work that was talking about something that's very topical. It was two of my former students who had experienced the casting couch thing, and they're ballerinas, and so one of them is pepper spraying Harvey Weinstein. So it's no more casting couch. And we got a lot of people who were really entranced with it, but it's the kind of artwork that's not for a private home. It's 14 feet wide, 7 feet tall, and it's also museum quality. So Kevin has had a range of things, everything from works that have been in private homes to things that have been shown in museums. There's one in the permanent collection at the Lipa Ratner Museum, if you want to get a chance to look more closely. I'm up in the treehouse, so you can see, oh, it actually looks like her. But he started doing these whimsical paintings that make fun of or take rubber ducks as the basis to do something lighthearted, because it seems that this time in American history we really need something that's enjoyable, that's light, that's not controversial, that people can just say, oh, this is cute, this would be a good backdrop for my Instagram, and so on. And I think the Tarpon Springs sponge ducks would do just that. And I think that's why the business owner was like, yeah, I mean, it was, people either like it or they don't. It's one of those kind of things. And so far we've gotten mostly people who are just like, oh, this is really cool. We like it. As far as, I had a question about the insurance thing. I know that's been an issue for you guys. When I checked with some of the various insurance companies, one of the things we were told, Kevin's work is a sole proprietorship. And so workman's comp doesn't actually apply, for example, because it doesn't cover the employer and he has no employees. So that was one thing. We also weren't clear on the car insurance. We have no commercial vehicles. We have our private cars in which we would drive the paint over. There's a dedicated parking lot behind the building, and we made sure that the owner knew that we need free parking included for the duration of the painting time, so that we can leave everything right there and then not cause too much traffic interference, since after all, the sponge docks are very much an active business area. So the parking is behind the building, which would be well out of the way. But so we didn't know whether our private car insurance through State Farm would be sufficient, or do we have to get some kind of commercial policy for the purposes of an art application? That was not clear. The other thing that was not clear was on the general liability. It didn't say in the application form that I found whether the city has to be a named insured, depending on which policy that ups the cost a little bit. Some it doesn't, so it really depends on who the vendor is. And so that wasn't clear from the materials I'd received, but.
Well, Michaela, thank you for, presenting. As I said, it's a fabulous proposal, very detailed, and we appreciate your questions. I think where we would go from here, and Diane, I look to you for your expertise too, is if we decide to go forward with the project, we'll approve it, and then it will go to the city attorney to answer the questions about the insurance component.
Okay.
I think
Because that's not our
Yeah.
job, basically, to dictate the insurance requirements.
I believe we would also have to get a contract with the building owner to.
Right.
The building owner happens to be a lawyer in town, so I would think that that should be fairly reasonable to accomplish, you know, since that is his area of
Right.
expertise. So, just saying, you know.
Right, right.
So-
Very good. All right, so I will entertain a motion from the committee to go forward with the Tarpon Springs sponge ducts.
I make a motion that we go forward with the Tarpon Springs sponge ducks.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we're off to the duck race. Looking forward to it. So I guess what we'll do now is the paperwork will go to Tom Trask and,
We get it put together for you. Yeah.
okay, and we'll proceed from there. Wonderful.
I believe it has to go to before the BOC first.
I think it goes to Tom first, and then it becomes a consent
Yeah.
agenda.
Tom first, okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay. Review of the BOC meeting discussion on January 28th. Okay. Did everybody have a chance to see the presentation that was made before the Board of Commissioners? Okay. I don't think we have any, there were no minutes or notes on that, were there, Diane? I don't think so. I know that I presented a PowerPoint presentation, and I know that, you know, it was live streamed as part of the Board of Commissioners meeting and was available. Do we want to have any discussion about it? Lucian, do you have any thoughts about?
I do. I watched that session very carefully because I couldn't be there. And Commissioner Carr, who always has a lot of ideas about public art, asked for a consensus on this series of projects he mentioned. The mayor said, no, we've already done that. So I went back to Diane's notes, which she furnished me, and the city clerk's minutes from the work session last May on public art. And I think as we go forward trying to do our master plan, we need access to all that information because the commission has agreed that they want to see certain things. And I think we need to be aware of it as we approve any projects that come before us or do our master plan.
Right. I also think, well, I was on the podium, so I was, you know, I usually tend to get a little nervous, but,
You did a great job.
oh, thank you. But I think that, from my point of view, I think I'd like clarification on what was actually agreed to as part of the consensus. And because it seemed like it was a very open-ended conversation, and I don't think anything was specific. I know that it doesn't have to be voted on per se to make it legal, but I think I'd really like to get more clarification for the committee to know exactly what they're looking for, because I keep going back to what I've come to call the NIAIDS fiasco, where there was a lot of miscommunication, and we basically spent a lot of time, money, and effort pursuing a project that, in the end, nobody wanted because of simple communication. So I think I personally, and I'd like to know how everybody else feels, would like to just present some kind of memorandum of understanding or some kind of document to the Board of Commissioners, just to clarify exactly the direction they want us to go and what projects they want us to pursue. So it's in black and white, and we know exactly what we're dealing with.
I agree.
Does that make sense for everybody? I'm not quite sure whether we should entertain a motion, but I like to err on the side of the angels, so Can I have a motion to request a delineation of our projects from the Board of Commissioners?
Sure.
Yes,
Trish?
Yes, I make the motion,
Bill,
yes.
second? All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Diane, I guess you and I will work on preparing that, getting it to the Board of Commissioners? Okay. Our next item is to, oh, sorry, Mark.
I just wanted to say, obviously I was at that meeting, and obviously I'm one who has trouble sometimes with the consensus. And so what I'd be willing to do for the board, along with Diane work on those, I would be glad to present that to the board, either with you or if you'd submit that to me, and I would take the lead in this case to try to clarify that, because there's going to be some other, issues that I'm dealing with that I have to do that. So I would be willing in this case to start it off if you would go and ask the different clarifications, and I would put that on the agenda. Obviously, you're willing to be there with me, and I'd be willing to do that agenda item
would be
with
great.
you. So we can pin down each individual one that they brought up in that meeting, and maybe ones that, I may have been there and thought one thing, thought another, you thought a third thing. And if we've got three things in mind, we got to clarify to what exactly it was. I know the one I've been involved in a lot is the postcard mural thing. That's one example of things. And where I am is just, I don't know, I know he's had the opportunity to come here and keeps getting delayed, that there's one more opportunity to do it. You as a board say yay or nay, and we bring it to committee. Listen, it was looked at, he presented, and it's a no, or it's a yes. And then here, board, you've done your work, we've done our liaison work, bringing it to you, and here it is. That's just one example of doing it. But the other things, and that's all I feel. I know that's one of the items on there. They said, well, I'm still waiting for the gentleman to come and bring his proposal to you after you told him what you were looking for. And after, we won't go into all the incident that happened at the beginning, where if it would have been through me or son, I'd have handled it probably in a way the commissioner or one wouldn't like, on the receipt thing and stuff. But that's all in the past. So you had one opportunity to do it, but come back to this meeting, present it, and let you make your decision. 'Cause I think it was the last meeting he was on there, and then all of a sudden he wasn't ready or whatever it
Right.
was. So the one thing I got at the meeting was the appearances that this board was maybe doing something to stall it. Well, you've been waiting to hear that last proposal, and you keep putting back. So it's not a delay on behalf of this art board bringing it forward.
Right.
We're
We
waiting
haven't
for the
gotten, we
gentleman.
haven't gotten a response
We're
from
waiting
him.
for the gentleman to give your, where is it? So you can make a decision, it is or it's not something you go forward with.
Right, right.
So I think that's just one example of all the items, when you work with Diane, that I'd be glad to put on the agenda for you and co-agenda item with you to get the clarification. So us as because we have to know as liaisons too,
Right.
between you and the board, we need to know where we're going, that we're on the same place, bringing it forward to you. So
Right.
I just wanted to volunteer to do that in this
Right,
case.
that's wonderful. Lucienne?
So do you think the place to start is the May work session, where the actual consensus was reached? I mean, that's what the mayor was implying at the January 28th meeting.
We probably need to look at both of them. I mean, I'm going on what they did the last meeting of given the consensus.
Right.
Asking for. If there's items that come from that May one that influence that. I mean, we can, it's no problem to do, we might as well do all of them that we've got, that we as liaisons and you as the board need to be completely understanding we're on the same page of what you're looking at.
Right.
So, either way, if there's some on the May ones that weren't on, because in my mind, that was the last meeting was the one where they gave you here are the things we want to see.
Right.
Which wasn't all the ones I don't think that was on before. But
No, they were
so,
all-
So
right.
this is the new list of so I was only dealing with that new list because that's the one they said we want to see the rest of this budget year or whatever, we want to see these looked at. So I would consider them, but if there's something from May that wants to be brought forward and get clear, I don't see any harm in that.
I may be splitting hairs, but it seemed that the mayor addressed Commissioner Carr as saying, we've already done that, when he asked for consensus on his new list. So,
Yeah.
but, you know,
Again, I would just say if you ask different people, you might get 5 different answers on
Right.
what they thought the perception of the consensus is, which is the importance of us going to a meeting and going one by one and get the clear, direct direction that all 3 of the parties involved will understand when we leave that meeting. So we're not in this guessing, because we tried this with the last item and all of us heard and saw different things, just
Right.
the way it was, so.
Right. I think if it's, Mark, I really appreciate it, and, you know, it's all about communication and clarity. That's the bottom line, and our ability to move forward. It's just great. I think if it's, I'm going to dump on our poor Diane again. I think if any of you have any concerns about the projects that were either mentioned at the Board of Commissioners meeting or projects that we're working on, they be addressed to Diane, and she and I will work on compiling them, and then Diane and I will bring them to Mark. Okay?
Sounds
And
good.
that's, I'm getting, yes, sure, Costa.
Yeah, sure.
Costa Vaticiotis. The postcard thing that we just talked about, I think it needs to be clear that the idea of a mural at that location is welcome. That's fundamental. It's just what was presented by that one gentleman was not deemed to be public art, which was not consistent with the ordinance. And that's
Correct.
why there was no support on the board. So I think it's extremely important that that be made so that it doesn't sound like art is not desired at that location. I think it is. I mean, I'm sure it is. It's just that particular type of mural was
Right.
not public art. Thank you.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, we're really trying to be creative but stay within the ordinances. So we're kind of on a little bit of a tightrope here. And I'm too old and fat to fall off. Okay, so I think our next item of business, I think we can move forward, is to develop a protocol to secure BOC approval for projects proposed by groups or individuals prior to consideration by the Pact. So in other words, I think if someone wants to do a major project and before it comes to us, we want to know that the Board of Commissioners is behind it. And I think this is, I know that Chief has come to us with what I consider is a fantastic idea to do a project in front of the public safety facility. And I think that's another thing. I think it was approved actually at the Board of Commissioners meeting, but I just. Right. And that, I guess that's another thing, we could get formal approval, because I think that's something we really need to move forward. Coincidentally, I saw a friend of mine this afternoon who's affiliated with Fire and Iron. It's a motorcycle group, actually, that's composed of retired New York City firemen, and he said they would be more than welcome to come on board with contributions or any support. So that's one group right there. So I think this will get a lot of community support, and I'm really looking forward to it. Want to do something really fantastic. Okay, on a number of different levels. Okay, recap of our workshop on the Pact Master Plan. I think we should defer that unless anybody has any ideas to the next meeting. Any thoughts on that? I think that requires a little more study. Okay, and Chief Cochin got the use of this room for a week from today, Tuesday, the 25th, for a workshop. I had a casual discussion with Diane. I think we may need some more time and schedule the workshop for, because we've postponed this one a week, the next meeting is going to come up very quickly, so maybe we can do another workshop in March or April.
Instead of this one?
Yes.
That would be good for me
Okay.
personally.
Okay, that works for everybody?
I'd like to make a request for after the 15th
Of
March.
March. Okay. But thank you, Chief, for your efforts. Okay,
So I'll go ahead and cancel that meeting here.
yes, thank you. Okay, now we have another item of business before us. This was just added on. This is a discussion of the Pact Committee member attendance policy. There was an email from our alternate, Sandra Hollibar. And this is the third meeting she's missed in a row. And under the ordinance, this basically opens her position up to a vacancy. And I'd like to know everybody's thoughts on this.
Let me ask you a question. Are the workshops considered a meeting that must be attended? Is it regarded the same as a regular general meeting?
The thing is that the precedent was set last summer when Sherry and Diana missed a workshop, and it was considered an absence, an unexcused absence.
She's an alternate member,
Correct,
a non-voting member,
right?
and we have not needed her vote at any of these meetings. I think that ought to be factored in. Business hasn't been halted.
Okay, well, it's just whether or not she's in compliance with the ordinance or not. As I said, the policy was invoked for 2 members of the committee last summer, and I don't know whether we
And there
want to
have-
make an exception in this
There has
case.
been no, she hasn't filled anything out, explaining why her absences are.
No. At the last meeting, we weren't even sure whether or not she was coming, so. Like in the case of Jules, that's different. She,
Yeah.
we know she had
Yeah,
major
exactly.
surgery
Obviously.
and, she notified us and we knew exactly what was going on, so.
Well, that's the other thing, is this is the third meeting, and now we're only hearing something.
Right, and I think in her email said that there might even be the possibility that she's not gonna make the next meeting, so. And I know on the application, it specifically asks people who apply if they have the ability to make the time commitment for the position. So. Silence is deafening. Where do we want to go with this?
I think since the precedence has been set last summer that we should not make an exception.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion to that effect, Trish?
How do you want it worded?
Well, I mean, due to the absence in accordance with the ordinance,
Right, yeah,
that we notify the Board of Commissioners that the position is vacant.
right. Okay,
that
I
your
make that
motion?
motion, yeah.
Do I hear a second? Anyone?
Second.
Theo? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I guess we have decided. So we will need to notify the Board of Commissioners that the position is vacant and solicit somebody else from our pool of applicants. Okay, Diane, do you have any announcements for the city?
Oh, not this time. Y'all been pretty busy.
Right. Okay, does anyone have at this time, any additions to the agenda for this meeting? I think we've covered everything. Our next regular meeting will be March 10th, 2 o'clock, here in the City Hall, second floor media conference room. Okay,
I
Trish?
have a question, and it probably should have been addressed a little bit earlier, but regarding the mural project that we really want to see go forward, but we're hampered by the insurance, would it be appropriate for us to give a certain amount of money to the owners of the buildings and let them contract with the artist to do the artwork, to do the murals?
that was something I think that I had thought about too, and I guess, again, that's a question for Tom Trask, because it would have to be couched, I guess, in terms of a grant program. And that's something that we could consider. In other words, give the building owner an allowance to create art.
Right,
And,
exactly.
I know a lot of the local businesses have already taken the initiative. I know like the Tarpon Springs Distillery and Katerina's, the new little Greek restaurant on Alt 19, have all done their own murals, as have any of the, the other businesses. So I think it's a good idea, and it might be a way around our dilemma.
yeah.
But again, we have to go to Mr. Trask for his opinion. Anybody else have any feelings or ideas about that?
I think it's a great solution.
Yes,
Potentially.
right.
Well, it's something that we feel deeply about, that we have spent a lot of time on.
Right.
And we're being, our hands are being tied virtually.
Right. The only issue I can see with it is that people who have gone ahead and done murals on their own initiative might feel that they missed the boat or feel, cheated or left out.
Well,
But I don't know how we would deal with that.
I think you make it very specific to a location, like this alley, or, this block of South Pinellas, or.
Right.
right, we have businesses that are on Pinellas, I guess that's South Pinellas, yeah, that have already agreed to have artwork done, and we just haven't been able to get back with them because of the restrictions. Yeah.
I do have a question.
Sure, Costa.
South Pinellas is state, is DOT right away, right? Yes. So how would that, that would be another question on things that are on state right away. That wouldn't be a city-driven requirement, I don't believe. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
But if they're put on private property,
Then that would be okay. But
Right.
Like Caterina's was on the front, and that sidewalk is in state right of way, as an example.
okay, but it's still on the wall of the building. I guess I'm confused.
I don't know.
I mean, we're not painting, like, we're not putting a billboard or some kind of freestanding artwork on county property, right? Is it?
I think we're fine if it's on the, if it's not within the DOT right away, I think we're fine.
Right.
If it's
So
on
if
the
it's on
building,
private property?
not in their right of way.
Right.
You just got the existing building, you just don't have to worry about. If they're putting a structure or something, you have to have, because you'd be surprised some places where it looks like the people's property is actually DOT right of way, and you can't. So I think that issue would only come up if they were putting something on their property.
Right.
Yeah, like the scaffold
sure.
the scaffold has to go on the sidewalk to go there. Now you're into
The actual
deal.
process of the mural, not
yeah.
the end result. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
anything that would even touch, encroach, broach beyond, then that'd have to be coordinated through
Right.
FDOT also.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification, all.
How would we go about, what would be the process for getting an okay to do this?
Well, I
You
guess-
say it has to go to the attorney, so who would be doing that? Would we send a letter to him, or how would that
Just
be?
ask 'em.
You would be talking to him?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can
Yeah.
ask.
And, it would be a matter of finding out whether there's a contract, I'm sure there's a contract involved, and setting up the parameters for a grant program. Like, again, like much, that's in the master plan, qualification of artists and, that type of thing. And, we would probably have to have some kind of final approval for any artwork that they're proposing that's under the grant program.
I believe we talked to him in the past about doing a grant program, and he said you couldn't because it was, public money. And so we're not a nonprofit to give out that kind of money, so it would have to be done another way. But I'll ask him if there's any other way to do it,
Right. Yeah, there is another thought too, and I know it's been discussed in other municipalities, and I think it was done with the Friends of the Library, to spin the committee off into a freestanding nonprofit that would give us a lot more flexibility. So that's another thing that, we could look at also. Because, we've talked in the past about, the fact that what we do as the Public Art Committee is somewhat conceptually a lot different than some of the other committees, the municipal committees, like the zoning committee, which is really finally dictated by legislation and ordinances. And we're kind of, I use the word squishy, you know, our art demands a lot of communication, a lot of creativity, a lot of subjectivity. And, you know, we don't just say, okay, ordinance, something like that says that we're gonna put a duck on the sponge docks. You know, we don't have that kind of, regimentation of ordinance or things, so that's something else we may wanna look at going forward. Okay, now this is the fun motion.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourned.
Oh, Lucianne beat you
Oh,
to it.
no, she did.
Okay, you'll do the
I
second,
second
Trish?
it, yes.
Okay, fine. The meeting is adjourned at 3:05 PM.